I wonder.
I saw your video. I got some time training.
It's so funny. Yeah.
All right, we'll get started. Let's do it. Thank you guys for being here tonight. Thanks for being here. This will be awesome. This is our first. We're calling this the Point Wealth series, and I'm really excited about it. Our goal is just to help you guys develop and get better, and that's what the off season is all about. So we're gonna be doing these every week, every Wednesday night. You're welcome to invite friends. Yeah, we have a really awesome group of speakers lined up over the next 2 months or so. When January hits, we will shift focus and talk. The room will be more full, and we will shift focus and talk more sales training, prepping for summer. But this time of year, it'll be different topics.
Hey, will you give him just a little
Yeah.
overview of what else is coming this?
Yeah. So
What are the other speakers?
I won't give away Gabe's nuggets for tonight, but tonight will be amazing. Gabe's one of our owners, and you're gonna get a ton out of tonight. So tonight will be amazing. Next week we have a real estate professional coming named Tanner Litchfield. He is a seller finance expert. So any of you guys that are interested in real estate investing, next week will be all things how do you get into real estate at a young age. I think the week after that, Blake Erickson is coming. He came last week. It was an amazing one. Or he came last year, sorry. Blake is a co-author of The Science of Scaling. It's an amazing book, really popular right now. So he's an author, a really successful entrepreneur. Jason Harris we have coming in a couple weeks. You know the Wells Fargo building downtown, bro? He owns that building and offices out of that building. Runs a really big, successful private equity real estate firm. So anyway, you'll get a lot of value out of it. Our goal is to help you guys develop as people, get better. Knowledge is power. And so anyway, that's the goal. And then again, after winter break, we'll transition and start getting you prepared for summer and how to sell a lot of pest control. So if you don't know who I am, my name is Parker Bass. I'm the VP of sales here. And I'll probably kick a lot of these off and then hand it over to our speaker. But introing Gabe, I'm going to do a quick intro, and then he has a keynote that he's going to share, maybe do some questions towards the end. We're lucky to have Gabe in town. Gabe is one of our owners, but lives in Arkansas. So he's not here super often. You'll see me and you'll get tired of seeing me here all the time. So tonight will be change of scenery. But Gabe is the one that convinced me to come here and do this back in the day. And I've been here with him for a long time. And the reason why I chose to follow Gabe and come work at Pointe is at that point, I was very committed to working in sales. I had fallen in love with sales compared to anything else out there. You know, in sales, you get to trade value for money, not time for money. I saw it as an amazing fast vehicle while in college to buy real estate and get ahead. But I wasn't seeing a lot of amazing mentors doing this and living off the field, if I can say that, in the way that I wanted to. I really admire the way that Gabe shows up for his family in his faith. He's almost 50 and looks like he's 30, so he's doing something right with how he's taking care of himself. So he's actually, I'll give it away a little bit, but that is actually what he's going to be talking about a little bit tonight, is just how to create a balanced life and show up in all the important areas of life and achieve true wealth, right? Wealth without those other pieces or other important pillars of life is not true wealth. And so he's going to share some awesome nuggets tonight. So let's give a big hand for Gabe.
Thank you.
Okay,
It is my pleasure to be with you guys tonight. Thanks for being here. I wanted to start this off with the question, what's the most valuable asset you could possess? But then it occurred to me that I'm maybe making some assumptions about what you know about building wealth. And so I thought maybe the better question to start is, what is an asset? This, by the way, will be interactive. So don't be afraid to speak up. Let me start, we'll ease into this. If you think you know what an asset is, raise your hand. Okay, that's, okay, good. Then we asked the right question because we need to clarify. If you feel like you have a decent definition of what an asset is, raise your hand.
I would say that it's like a vehicle, not like an actual vehicle, but something that helps you build wealth. It's like like an example would be like a real estate.
Okay,
Something in real estate, like a rental unit that builds value passively.
fantastic. I love that. There's an important word, Tevin. Important word that Tevin used. He mentioned value. And so to maybe just give you a really simple like definition to start with, an asset is a resource that has financial value attached to it. So give me some examples of kinds of assets that you could potentially possess. So we already got real estate. Stock, that's a great one. Bonds. And you kind of start to get the picture of kinds of assets. I think if you Google right now, what's the most, if you Google this question, Google will tell you that it's gold. Gold's the most valuable asset that you could have right now. It's the one that trades at the highest price still. I'm going to give you an alternative answer besides Google. I'm going to diverge from Google today. And I'm going to say that time is your most valuable asset. And I would make that contention because the reason that gold is so high is because it's also relatively rare. There's a finite limited supply of gold in the world. And because it's rare, that makes it more valuable. Does that concept make sense? So with time is also finite. And it's the one resource that once you've spent it, you can never get it back. So if you spend money, you can always get more, right? If you expend reputation, you can continue to expand or repair or build reputation. Even energy, right? You can expend energy and then you can recharge again. But when you spend time, that's it. You don't ever get that moment back again. How you use your time determines what you create and who you become. So I would make the contention that your ability to build any other kind of asset or wealth that you want to is directly tied with how you use your time. So I want to give you an analogy. So in a forge, forges are used by blacksmiths, people that are forging, like creating things with metal, right? So heat and time shape raw metal into something that's strong, useful, valuable, and oftentimes even beautiful. And so it's similarly, time is the forge that you use to build yourself into the kind of person that then can go create a life that is productive and abundant and successful and also beautiful. And so there's, again, I just want to make that connection that what you do with your time directly impacts who you become, and who you become directly impacts your ability to create value in the world, and money follows value. So what you do with time directly impacts your ability to create wealth. Time is also the great equalizer. Everybody gets the same amount. Have you ever maybe noticed that productive people are really, really good with their time? There also seems to be the people that maybe have the least free time. Like the people that are really, really successful, that are winning on multiple fronts, usually aren't like spending a lot of time doing things that don't create value. How many of you have ever wished that you had more time? I just wish that I could have a little bit more, right? people that are producing at high levels, and interesting that Joe and I just had a conversation about comparison, but sometimes it looks like, man, I wish I could do what that guy's doing. I wish I had more time than he did. I would just remind you gently that he or she has the same 24 hours that you do. And so it's maybe less of about having more time, but being more efficient and effective with the time that you have. And so tonight we're going to talk about how do we do that. And I'm going to share some processes, systems, things that I've used over time to be better with my time. Most of what I've learned and what I really learned to put into practice came at a time in my life when we were new in our business, and I was very much involved in growing what we have here. I was also working on an MBA up at the University of Utah, and I was the bishop of my home ward. I had very little free time. We were in the thick of raising our 4 kids. All of our kids were at an age where they were involved in school sports and music. And my wife, who was incredibly supportive, was also working on a bachelor's degree. So things were pretty crazy. We were in a little bit of a pressure cooker in our house. And I just didn't have the luxury to waste time. If I was going to be able to accomplish all the things that I was working on successfully, I had to get really, really good with my time. So I'm going to share some of the lessons that I've learned through that forge of affliction that we put ourselves through. Okay, where your attention goes, energy flows. And you will forge the life you want by spending time intentionally and actively. And I love that word active. Ancient wisdom teaches that we are agents to act for ourselves, but oftentimes we run the risk of becoming objects that get acted upon. And ultimately, this is a principle of how you learn to use your agency, about what you do with time to be active and to be intentional. So those principles are tied directly to this. So if you're passive with your time, things will act upon you and you'll be like, hey, what just happened with all that time? Where did it go? If you're intentional and you're active, you get to tell your time where to go and it will work for you. So again, I love that idea of like where your attention goes, the energy will follow, the energy will flow. I want to give you an example of this. So there's no judgment here. We're all here to improve and get better. I love that you're here on a Wednesday night to learn and to grow. But I'd like you to get out your phones, go to settings, and go to screen time. And I want you to take a look at how you are using your time. And I'm a big believer that the truth will set you free. And I think sometimes we get caught by surprise at how we're actually using our time. And so almost everyone said, yep, I'd love more time. And this is a place that will expose where you might have a little more of it. I would just maybe, invite you guys to give yourself a little bit of an audit. Like, are the things that you say are most important in your life aligned with what your phone says you spend most of your time on? And if you're spending more time on things that are maybe just, fluff or recreational or just time waste than you do on developing your relationship with God, your relationship with the people that matter most in your life, with working on yourself to increase your capacity to go build the life that you actually want to have, it might be time to give yourself an inventory of how are you actually spending time and what really does matter most in your life, and are those two things in alignment? And if they're not, tonight is a wonderful opportunity for you to make some course corrections and to change that. And so again, there's no judgment here. It's just like truth is what it is. And if there's room for improvement, tonight's an opportunity for you to make a commitment to improvement. And I'm just curious, how many of you feel like there's maybe, based on that exercise of checking out screen time, how many of you feel like there's maybe a little bit of room to improve? Were you surprised at how much maybe screen time you have? Good. If nothing else happens tonight, then tonight was a win. Every time you say yes, you're saying no to something else by default, because there's just so many things out there that you could be doing. When you say yes to one of them by default, you're saying no to other things. intentional planning helps you say yes to the things that matter most. And I hope you're starting to pick up a pattern of there's a need for intentionality here. We're gonna talk about planning. So just like with a budget, you get to tell your money where it goes and how it works for you. And if you don't budget, then your money will go wherever the path of least resistance is, and you'll wonder where it went. Similarly, a plan is how you tell your time where to go instead of wondering where it went. So being again intentional with your time. You don't need more time, you need more intentional use of the time that you have. I want to share an example of someone who I really look up to still. I just recently finished reading a book called The Heart of the Matter. It's a book by Russell M. Nelson. And at a time in his life when he was at kind of like the peak of his career as a doctor, like world-renowned heart surgeon, and also doing research and teaching. Also at the time when he was like at the peak of being a father of 9 girls and 1 son, and also serving as the general Sunday school president for a worldwide organization. Like massive amounts of responsibility and lots of pull on his time resource. He felt the impression that he needed to work on some things. And so he made the sacrifice. He counseled with his wife that I feel like I'm just not quite as like connected to things of the spirit, and I feel like I'm not developing myself in the way that I should. And so he made the commitment to get up at 4:30 in the morning to practice, like to learn or to improve his ability to play the organ and to study scripture so that he can kind of plug back in. Which to me, like the amount of discipline and intentionality into, I think that's the embodiment of you don't need more time, you just need more intentionality with what you're doing with your time. Most of us would say, I'm too busy, and maybe even be a little bit like justified by saying that, right? And instead he said, I think I could probably adjust what I'm doing with my time and make room for things that matter most to me. Another example of this, at a similar time in his life, he was in a meeting where they were invited to learn Chinese. And again, it's like, I got a lot going on, right? And instead of making excuses or saying I'm too busy, he hired a Chinese tutor, and he learned Chinese well enough to be able to open doors to China and like to like medical exchanges and to create some unique and really wonderful relationships with China at a time where that really wasn't happening. Because he was willing to be intentional about the time that he was using. I use that as hopefully as something that inspires you to say, maybe I could create more time to do things that matter most for you as well. I know that when I read that, I felt inspired and maybe a little bit guilty, like I could probably step my game up a little bit. Okay, we're gonna get into some specific processes and systems and Claire. I think I've got a worksheet for you guys to like work on, and we'll link this to Slack probably.
Yeah.
Make sure if you want recopies or refills of this, that you can have copies of it. And in full disclosure, I didn't invent this. I've modified it a little bit, but a lot of this comes from a book called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And it's by Sean Covey wrote that book, so it's Stephen Covey's son, and it's tied to like the Franklin Covey group that trained on things like this. Fantastic book. I would highly recommend it. 4 Disciplines of Execution. I'll wait till we get those handed out. And you can use that to follow along, and we'll actually like put it into practice in a minute here. I'm just gonna kind of walk you guys through the steps that I've used to get better at using my time. You guys have things to write on? We don't want to hand out reports too, or
Yeah, we have plans.
if you need something to write on, we've got those. Coming right up.
You can grab Parker one too.
Thank you.
Hey, do we have enough? Do we grab more?
We have some really dirty ones that are from knocking back there.
Yeah, we'll give those to our veteran reps. Those are the ones that made them dirty. Yeah, one, we go.
I'll still on it.
All right. Thank you, Claire. Thank you. Okay. So I'm gonna outline just briefly kind of how this is going to flow. So I'm gonna just teach a high level concept. I'm gonna show you by example, those of you that know me well know that I'm fairly private. But I'm gonna give you some insight into how I've used this personally, to hopefully give you some application of what it actually looks like in real time. And then we'll give you the opportunity to put it into practice and start learning how to do this for yourself. So that'll be kind of the flow of the rest of tonight. So the foundation of my process is values and vision. What do you value and what is the vision that you have for your life based on those values? So again, to give you like a practical example of that, one of the ways that have helped me organize like my foundation of what I prioritize in my life are a concept called the 4 F's. It's faith, family, fitness, and finances. And so I use those 4 F's as like those are kind of my core values of what I use to allocate time and resources and to define what's important to me. Based on those values and the vision that I have of the kind of life that I want to live based on those values, I create goals. Typically, when we talk about goal setting, it's I want to accomplish X by Y. There's a specific accomplishment that I want in a specific time frame. Now, sometimes, like for example, one of my values is faith. I suppose that like to strengthen my faith, I could say like I'm going to read the Book of Mormon in a certain amount by X, by Y. But oftentimes, some of your goals aren't going to be quite so tangible or so linear. And this process will still work for that. I'm going to show you a more linear example with finances, but I just want to give you kind of that caveat that either way you're going to create goals, but sometimes those goals are a little bit more intangible. This process will still work with that. It's just not going to be quite so rigid. Does that make sense? Okay, so once I've got goals established, so again, for example, one of my 4 F's is fitness. So I set a goal as I'm getting ready to turn 50 next week that I wanted to have my body composition to be at a certain level. And so I had a very specific X that I wanted to accomplish by my 50th birthday. Based on that very specific goal, the next step is act on what you control. And there's some concepts that I want to teach within that acting on what you can control. It's the idea of lead measurements and lag measurements. So the lead measurements are the things that I can do that I have control over that will influence and maybe even predict the lag measurement. So in this specific example, my lead measurements are exercising on a daily basis. So I have a very specific, like I'm going to do 2 45-minute workouts a day, every day, 6 days a week. I have a very specific like food or dietary goal because that directly affects my ability to hit that body composition. And so I've got some dietary things right now where I'm like, I'm not eating any like bread and I'm not eating any sugar. And so my dietary restriction is a little bit lean right now. That's the path I'm on. So those are lead measurements. Those are things that I have 100% control over. Regardless of what's happening, I can go work out 45 minutes a day. And regardless of anything else that's happening, I get to pick what I put in my body, what I'm going to eat, what I'm going to consume. Those are the things that I can control. I'm focusing or I'm acting on the things that are in my power. So that's step 3. Step 4 is you track your progress. It's the idea that you want to be keeping score. How am I doing with this? And then lastly, be accountable. There needs to be some kind of a cadence of accountability to whatever it is, whatever the goal is that you set that you want to accomplish. So again, to give you an example of this, I'm using 75 hard as kind of the framework that I'm using to accomplish this goal. So I've got some very specific activities. My lead measurements are clearly defined. And I have my score. Like, did I do it today or didn't I? That did I do it or did I not is creating a cadence of accountability that helps me to know exactly am I on track and not to low key flex. I'm ahead of schedule, but I hit my 12%. That was my goal. Started at 15.1. I'm at 12. Couple weeks ahead of schedule. But I hope that shows you the process of what that looks like in real time. Let me go back. Based on a value, you create a goal. Based on that goal, I identify what are the lead measurements, what are the things that I can act on, that I can control, that will influence and predict the outcome of that end goal. And then once I have that, I'm going to track my progress. I'm going to keep score. Am I doing those lead measurements, and is it moving the needle on the lag and on a regular basis? So for most of the goals that I'm operating on in my life, it's more of a weekly cadence of accountability. With this one, it happens to be daily. Every night I have to hold myself accountable. Typically, I'm holding myself more accountable on a weekly basis. But does that process make sense? So you're going to get the opportunity to work on that, but tell me about some of like the values that are important to you that you would use to govern how you use your time. So, again, my framework is faith, family, fitness, and finances, but that's the framework that's worked for me. Are there other potential values that you would use to help you create goals for yourself? Education. Yes, absolutely. So for me, like, I'm not in school anymore, so my focus is financial. But for you, it might be intellectual because that's the frame and the time of life for you that will set you up for financial down the road. That's a great modification. Any other thoughts on that?
I would say like joy or happiness.
Absolutely. This you'll appreciate this one, Parker, but our family has known about my 4Fs for a long time, but we've added a 5th F, and it's fun. And we want to make sure that there's a place for recreation, and creating moments that bring happiness and joy. And that's an important part of the process as well. I will say that as I've gotten better at the other 4, it's created more availability for that fun. When you do the other ones right, the rest the other one happens almost automatically. Other thoughts on that? Okay. Any questions on this pyramid? Any points of clarification? Pretty self-explanatory.
Can you re-explain like lag and
Yes.
principle?
So a lead measurement is something that you can have control over, that is predictive, and that is that will influence your ability to reach the lag measurement. So for example, like the reason we call it a lag is because I don't necessarily know if I'm going to hit it until the end. And so I don't when you focus on lag goals, that can be you lose control, and then that creates stress and anxiety. So rather than focus on something that I don't have control over, I'm going to focus on the things that I can control that influence and predict the outcome. And by focusing on what I can control, I have way more it's way more likely that I actually hit the goal. And so lead is on the front side of the achievement, lag is on, like, what if the goal is I'm gonna accomplish X by specific timeline Y, I don't really know if I've won or lost until I get to Y. And by fixating on that, you usually waste energy on something you don't have any control over, because it's a lag. So instead of that,
Inputs and outputs is another way.
yeah, that's another
of
great way
goal.
to.
It'd be like with selling in a day, no, I'm gonna knock 100 doors, that's my input. My sales goal would be an output goal,
Yes.
or a lead goal being doors knocked, lag goal being sales that I close.
So, because I'm guessing that most, if not all of you are or will be students, let's apply the principle. If education is something that you value and you have a goal to get good grades, what are the lead measurements to getting good grades if that's your goal? Going to class is a great lead indicator. That's predictive, right? It influences. It's a
She's
What-
my class of year.
Thank you for being here.
But
This is a
most of
good
them.
return.
So,
Sheesh.
You'll get more out of
That's
this.
enough.
I agree.
Any more than a 2-hour class, that's truly unusual punishment anyways. What else? What are other lead measurements that get you to the end result of a good grade? Studying.
I'm in hair school right now, and I was thinking about how so on Saturdays we can book our own clients.
Yeah.
If I put an effort in booking my own clients every Saturday, then it'll make me more productive with my time.
100%. I love that. So does that help kind of clarify lead lag?
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Any other questions on that? So,
I
yes.
was gonna say, another way I like to think of this values and vision is just like pillars, like what are the, for Gabe, it's the 4S, you might have more or less pillars in your life that you're building everything else up off of, but like just being very mindful of like what matters to me. I was listening to a podcast today, and it's actually like a somewhat morbid, depressing thought, but the guy was like, it kind of like deeper philosophy, but like, if you were to be taken from the earth tomorrow, like, why would you be sad about that? Like, what would you miss, and for me, it would be like my family, and, like a priority in my life is my faith as well. But like all the things that I'm spending my time with that matter to me that I would miss if I were gone, is another just kind of way to think of it. But anyway, I like the word pillars there. Like, what am I building my life off of? What matters to me? Love that.
Yes.
What is a good way you found to help keep yourself accountable? Because I know sometimes people can have other people that they keep themselves accountable to. And when you're by yourself, sometimes that dynamic changes a little bit.
Yeah. I think it depends on the goal. So like in our sales arena, you'll notice that we run a daily correlation meeting where you literally return and report on the activity and the end result, the lead and the lag of what you did that day. Like we're intentional about that because it creates a cadence of daily accountability. My wife is amazing. She's been doing 75 hard with me, and she's been my accountability partner. And that's made it way easier for me to win there because I've had someone to be able to like kind of retreat. The app is fine, but a real person's been way better. So like an accountability partner is valuable. Like-minded people that are working towards the same common goals is, you want to run with the pack of people that are going to help you level up and that will hold you accountable to what you want to accomplish. Nate.
I had a thought in terms of when it's just you, yourself, and no one else. Like I write my goals down on a weekly basis, and at the end of that week, I write a review of my week. So I could look at okay, I wrote this goal down, and then at the end of the week, I write down how did I do? How did I feel? How have I changed in this 6 or 7 day period? So for me, putting it in writing to myself, and then I go back and read previous entries, usually when I'm doing that, setting goals for the next week. Okay. So for me, on an individual level, writing it down it can be awesome and it can be brutal, depending on how your week went. But
Ultimately, will be your very best accountability partner, right? And if you can learn to hold yourself accountable, you become unstoppable.
Yeah, so I kind of touched on it a little bit, but what would you say would be the best way to readjust? Because as we're starting this process, it's really a messy process, going through your goals and trying to figure out the best way to manage your time. And so how would you go about readjusting when it's not working how you want?
I think that's one of the beauties of that cadence of accountability. I'm gonna show you like step 2 to this. Once you have a clear picture of like your values and your vision and you've established your goals can change. You know, new semester, maybe new stage of life, different things that you're working towards. So your goals will change, but on your way to your goals, that cadence of accountability and being able to look back at your score of lead and lag measurements. This is what I did to move the needle. Did the needle move? And if it didn't, what adjustments am I going to make this week to help make it go better? So that literally every week you get to course correct and make adjustments on like your plan of attack on those lead measurements. Did that help?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions on this piece? Mark, anything you want to add? No. Okay.
Just
Yes.
a question, what tips do you have on like remembering your goals throughout the day? Cause like, I'll look at my goals that I set in the morning. And like usually set goals on like Sundays for my week and then morning goals as well.
Yeah.
But then like during the day, like one of my goals that I've been trying to work on for a long time is not slouch as much. Like have better posture.
Yeah.
And then I'll be like throughout my day, like sitting at my desk at work or something like that, and I'll be like, oh, I'm like slouching hardcore right now. Like it's like how do you like remember that throughout the day, you know?
You're doing it. Like, oh, I just caught myself and now I'm going to make an adjustment. I mean, that's how you do it. Like the fact that you're writing it down, the fact that you're cognizant of the goal, and then you keep coming back like, oh, I need to adjust. You're doing it.
Do you have other tips though on like how to remember your goals throughout the day?
Yes,
Like,
this one might not be the perfect one for slouching. For that, I recommend a great wife. She always can do this well. Other than that, I'm gonna go to the next slide, and I think it will perfectly answer kind of both of your questions. So once you're clear on your values and your vision, and you've got clear goals, you've identified the reason why the pyramid isn't like 1, 2, 3, 4 like this, it's because this step will happen over and over and over again on the way to X to Y. Right? So like the goal is what drives 3, 4, and 5 over and over and over again on a weekly basis. So what that looks like on a weekly basis is what I call the time forge. And it starts, you guys, if you flip it over, you have a copy of it. So it starts with fueling your own personal fire. So this is, I would liken this to Stephen Covey taught the concept of in 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, the idea of sharpening your saw. That like if you're working super hard, he tells the story, you're out. If you're trying to see how many logs you can like fell in a certain amount of time, that a significant portion isn't just spent on swinging the axe. That you actually have to take time to sharpen the saw, and you'll be way more effective. You'll get way more results when the axe stays sharp, rather than just acting with a lot of energy but not being effective because you haven't taken the time to keep yourself sharp. So those first 8 sections in here are what are the things that you want to be focused on for you personally to keep you sharp, to keep you like to fuel your fire. So as you move into the process of accomplishing your goals, you're fired up. So what are some examples of the kinds of things that could potentially keep you fired up and fueled for your future week based on your values and your vision? Jenna, yes.
I noticed in my life, when I surfed, I did my homework better. I was more effective in every other part of my life. Like it just put me through. And so for me, it was connected with my fire is doing something like fun or being outside in the sun, or I value fun, and it does help me be productive in every other.
I'm super curious. So those who don't know, Jenna spent her first 2 years of her undergrad doing Hawaii. Lucky little thing. What have you found now? What are you doing to fuel your fire?
Working on it.
Not quite warm and sunny anymore, so.
No, I do need to figure it out. I've noticed that it is harder for me when I'm not.
Yeah.
tired.
So look, that's perfect.
Like
So-
running, working out.
Sure.
My body.
Love that. Okay, so for me, because again, I'm a simple person, I have my 4 Fs. So when I look at my faith, there's some specific activities that I know will fuel me up. Scripture study and attending the temple, worshiping on Sunday, those are things that for my faith box keep me fired up and keep me fueled. For my fitness blocks, I have very specific, even when I'm not doing 75 hard, I have very specific, well, I'm gonna get to this, but for me, it's like I'm going to be in the gym 4 days a week and I'm gonna be doing something outside that's endurance related 1 day a week. That's my typical routine that has worked well for me for years now. So I've got very specific things that I'm going to fuel my fitness. What are the activities that I need to do this week that are gonna keep driving? So same thing with my family box. Like, what are the things that I'm going to do this week that are going to help strengthen the relationships with the people that matter most to me? So that's the process that you go through with fueling your fire. And you get very specific about what am I doing this week to fire me up, to stay fueled. Any comments or questions about that piece? So can you see how what we just did on the backside with your vision and your values ties directly into what you're doing on a weekly basis in that fuel piece? Your values and vision are what should be driving how you make decisions about what fires you up. Okay. So then underneath of that, you've got, yours should look a little different, but I should say on yours, elements. So within every, balanced, productive life, each of you probably, have different elements of who you are and what your roles and responsibilities are. So for me, like I'm a husband and I'm a father and I'm a business person, I'm an entrepreneur. In my church service, I'm a high counselor. With every single role that I have certain responsibilities and things that I'm trying to accomplish within each one of those roles. I would caution you not to, you could get carried away with, like if you dilute yourself too much with so many roles, it's hard to be effective here. So you have room for 6 on your page. I would identify like what are the 6 most important roles in your life, again, based on your values and your vision. Based on those elements that make up your full, complete makeup, what are those roles that you have? What are your elements? And then on a weekly basis, I'm going to identify what are the maybe 1 or 2, at most 3 most important things I can do this week to move the needle in that role. So on a weekly basis, I'm evaluating what are my roles, what are my elements, and what do I need to be focused on? What action can I take this week to move that needle? Questions on that process? So that this typically should be happening, I would recommend on like Saturday evening as you look to what are you going to do for the next week? And because you've written it down, now you have an excellent tool to hold yourself accountable to. Last week, I identified these elements of my life that I wanted to focus on. And I said that this was the most important thing or things that I could do this week to move my needle. Did I do it? Or didn't I? And if I didn't move the needle, I did the desired outcome from doing that activity. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, any questions on that? It's a simple process, but there's some intentionality here that will be really powerful. Once you've identified what it is that you're going to do, both from fueling your fire and then also from identifying your elements and what are the most important activities you can do for that. Let me give you a quick analogy. This is, again, comes from Stephen Covey from 7 Habits. Imagine that I had a mason jar, right? And I have a bag of rice and I have a bag of golf balls. And so you familiar with this analogy? So the golf balls represent the things that are most important in my life. The big rocks is what Covey calls them, that will be the things that actually move the needle in the things that matter most in your life. And everything else is the rice. And more often than not, we get bogged down with the rice. All like the things that are on your phone that just blew you away at how you spent some time that you didn't know you had. The other things that maybe are fun or urgent, but not the things that actually matter most, and the activities that will move the needle in the things that matter most. If you fill that jar up with rice and then try to shove golf balls in there, they will not fit. It's like literally there's just no room for it. But if you'll put the golf balls in that jar first and then let the rice fill in the gaps, you can get the same rice and the same golf balls in the same jar, and they'll all fit. And it's, again, it's a matter of intentionality and sequence. So the way that I make that happen in real life application is the principle of blocks and patterns. So and you don't need to read it, like what's actually on the calendar doesn't matter, but the principle is that, again, like for example, if fitness is important to me, I'm going to block out very specific time dedicated to that value. I'm going to go to so if I put on my fuel, my fire, go to the gym 4 days a week, then on Monday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday, I'm going to block time for the gym. And what works best for me is I'm going to create a pattern. It's going to be at the same time every single day and week after week after week, so that I'm creating a habit of going to the gym. So for me, like my week looks like every morning at 7:30, I'm at the gym, except for Wednesdays. And on Wednesdays, that's my temple day. And I go to the temple every Wednesday morning at 7:30. That's where I'm going to be. And I've created a block and a pattern of that theme. We know that every Monday morning at 10 o'clock Utah time, 11 o'clock Arkansas time, we're meeting for our senior leadership meeting, and that's we meet every Monday at 11. And then every Monday at 12, we meet with our regionals. And on Tuesday, I know at 10:30, I have a meeting for my other business, and we have our board meeting every Wednesday at 10:30. Those, I've got very specific time blocked for a very specific activity that was on my time forge, and I've created a very specific block and pattern to make those things happen. And you'll find that when you block and pattern for a few weeks, and especially for a few months, pretty soon it's very little effort to create those daily disciplines in your life, that they just become part of who you are, because you've created powerful habits through the principle of block and pattern. You had a question.
Yeah, I'm just curious, is this an app? Is it
No, literally, I just screenshotted this, but like I'm literally using, like, my calendar is Apple Calendar, just the one on my phone. So whatever, like, what you could have like a written calendar, if you're into like old school writing it down, you could use your Google Calendar, you can use Apple. Like there's not a right and way to, like, whatever is going to actually work for you to create a calendar, that's what you should do. Great question. Parker, I think you had a comment.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, for me, this and doing this effectively more so comes down to what I am willing to say no to. There's a lot of things I could say yes to, but I think like clarity on what really matters to me is the foundational first part, and then weekly planning and choosing to say yes to things that matter to me and no to things that just don't serve me in those pillars, those foundational things. And there's a book called Essentialism that I really love. It's actually by an LDS guy, but I'm going to quote it. There's a swear word, but he says, if it's not a hell yes, then it's a no. And I really love that concept of if I'm not really excited and adamantly for it in terms of it serving me and hitting my goal, then it should be a no. If it's maybe it serves me, then probably not, right? And so anyway, I think just learning to say no to the noise is a really important thing. Schedule, and this helps so much scheduling at first, so that I don't even have an option to. If I have some white space, which a lot of times you will, that's the
Yeah.
second part of this, is you will still have some white space on your calendar. Then it takes being an intentional person and saying no to the things that are not as adamant yes for me.
Yeah, very rarely will my week actually look like this, or it's blocked completely like wall to wall. There's usually lots of white space in there, and that's the rice, right? That's like all the things that come at you, like, oh, I need to do this, or I need to do that. You'll still have time for those things, but by doing this exercise, what you can have confidence in is that the things that matter most are getting the attention first, that you know those, you will have time, they're scheduled, they're calendared, you know when and how they're going to get accomplished. And then you'll schedule the rest of those things that are maybe less, that aren't there. The heck yes.
The heck yes.
In between. You'll still have room for those, but then, and again, I would just, from personal experience, say that, when you get really, really good at this, you become very efficient, and your ability to start saying yes to those things that are more fun and maybe a little bit less essential, it gets way easier, and you're doing it with, it's more fun to go do those fun things because you're not stressed out about like, I should be studying right now, or like there's other things I'm supposed to be doing or that are going, I'm going to have to do later. But I wasn't wise with my time. So when you do have that downtime, that part's actually more efficient and more fun too. Is that comments or questions on that? Okay, just a couple maybe closing thoughts because we're almost right on the hour. Aristotle, so this is some significantly ancient wisdom, right? We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not an act, but a habit. I hope that you can see when those three pieces, when you have clear vision and clear values and vision, when you're setting goals, when you're focused on what you can actively control, when you're keeping score and holding yourself accountable, and then building that into your time forge on a weekly basis of identifying what fires you up, how you stay sharp, and what are the roles that matter most to you, and what are the activities that you can do that will move the needle in what matters most for you, and putting that into a blocks and patterns. So there's kind of those 3-step sequences. That's when you start creating habits that make you excellent, that expand your capacity to be able to go build the life that you want to build. Like that's what that process looks like. So again, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. That's by James Clear, who wrote Atomic Habits. This is like the paper that you have in your hand is a very, very simple system that if you will actually apply, will be very, very effective at helping you be way more intentional with your time. So use this system to take action to forge you into the person that can build the life that you want to live. Questions? Thoughts? If there aren't any questions, then that's all I got. Thanks for being here tonight, you guys. Appreciate it. Back to you.
Yeah, no, thanks for being here. We'll be here again next Wednesday night. We'll put it on Slack, but it'll be either 7 or 8. So it'll kind of depend on the guest and what time they want to come in. But next week, again, it's a real estate investor named Tanner. He's amazing. Bring friends. And yeah, we just want to add value. So thanks for being here tonight. Drive home safe. Thanks for tuning in on Zoom. Hopefully I got some text saying the audio was good. So that was good. It was good. Zoom was good. Our Zoomers were happy. So cool. Thanks, guys. There's more pizza.
Found it.
If you're single and hungry, take food home. Or if you still, yeah, even if you're not single, take food home. No, if you're not single, take a ton. Yeah. It's
Even more reason to take it.
You got kids at home. Take all of it.
Monday, so.
What the? Oh, my chance is
So you look exactly like somebody. Have you, do you like,
I look like the
do you
kid.
golf at all?